Good evening, everyone. I'm Noemi Vitella, and I'm part of the Compliance Assistance and Outreach branch at CARB. I work on outreach for heavy and light duty vehicle programs and incentives, and I also help in planning these evening community meetings. Starting this month, I will be facilitating these meetings going forward, and I do want to take a moment to thank my colleague Adelina Paez for having run these meetings for many months now. I hope I can do as great of a job as she has. So thank you, Adelina. I also want to thank our team of volunteers who help make these meetings possible each month. We really appreciate your time and effort, so thank you very much. And for our new guests, thank you for joining. At these meetings, we share updates on CARB's clean transportation incentives, engagement opportunities, and also presentations on topics that the public's interested in learning more about. And as a quick housekeeping note, this meeting is being recorded. The recording, the agenda, the slides, and also the attendee list will be posted on our meetings and workshops webpage in about 2 weeks. Staff are going to drop the link in the chat so that you can access it later if you need to rewatch it or if you'd like to share with other folks. So let's get started. Let's get to the next slide. So these meetings are about community and about sharing information. Our meeting agreements are here to alleviate some challenges, and they're as follows. Please let's all be respectful. Let's be kind and create a comfortable space for everyone so that we can all share our thoughts, our ideas, and experiences. Also, let's take space or make space. So if you have a lot to say, that's great. We really encourage participants to ask questions, but we also want you to be mindful and leave room for others to participate as well. Also, please listen to understand, listen without judgment or jumping to conclusions. And lastly, let's consider equity. We all aim to develop solutions with fairness and equality in mind, and people from all over the state are here to work together. These diverse perspectives really help us overcome barriers. So with these agreements, let's move on to the next slide. The purpose of these meetings is to hold space for community members to engage with CARB staff. And so our goals for these meetings are to provide a space for community voices and priorities, to brainstorm solutions for clean transportation needs, and to also highlight important program information. We also foster ongoing communication between staff and the community through these platforms. We understand that many community members face challenges attending daytime meetings due to work, to family responsibilities, and other commitments. And to help keep you informed, we've created these evening meetings to provide summaries of CARB's daytime clean transportation workshops and work groups. These evening sessions have been planned specifically for community members, community-based organizations, and for individuals who may not be able to attend the daytime meetings, but they also want to share their concerns, their questions, and suggestions with CARB staff. If you're attending tonight as a representative of the industry or part of a governmental organization, we welcome you to listen into these community meetings to gain a better understanding of individual and community perspectives. However, we strongly encourage you to participate in CARB's daytime work groups and workshops, which offer more in-depth technical and policy information. Lastly, for the questions and answers sections tonight, we ask that you help us prioritize feedback and questions from individuals and from community members, since these meetings create a space for community specifically. For tonight, we have 3 items on the agenda. First up is Michaela Elder. She is an air pollution specialist at CARB's Equity Mobility Incentives branch. And she's going to be providing a recap and a summary of CARB's November 13th Drive Forward Incentives Workshop. For our second presentation, we have Albertina Ancoma. She's an air pollution an air resources technician at CARB's Transportation and Clean Technology branch. And she's going to be providing a recap of CARB's December 2nd Drive Forward Heavy Duty Vehicles workshop. And our last discussion tonight will be a quick reflection of our 2025 evening community meetings, which I'll be covering. We will have a Q&A section after each topic, and I believe that all of our presentations tonight will be collecting feedback, so we encourage community members to engage if you have questions or comments about the topics we discuss. Okay, so next, I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Michaela. She's going to be doing a recap of the Drive Forward Incentives Workshop.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela Elder, and I'll be sharing a recap of our Drive Forward Incentives Workshop, which took place on November 13th, 2025. The reason we had this workshop is because the federal government has made some recent decisions that broke the law and the Constitution, hurting our programs, making it harder for California to clean up air pollution, and weakening CARB's ability to protect people's health. In addition, changes in federal policies and budget cuts are making car companies unsure about investing in cleaner technology. One big problem is the loss of federal tax credits for zero-emission vehicles. This makes clean cars more expensive and slows down progress, but we can't afford to slow down. Transportation creates 60% of the state's smog pollution and 40% of greenhouse gases. We need to keep cutting emissions to meet air quality standards, fight climate change, and protect our communities. Governor Newsom signed Executive Order N2725 to reinforce California's commitment to clean air and zero-emission vehicles, especially in communities most impacted by pollution. The order directs CARB to create new rules to reduce greenhouse gases and other harmful pollutants, purchase vehicles from companies that support clean air goals, and explore more ways to help people switch to zero-emission vehicles. To support this, CARB launched the ZEV Forward initiative, giving the public a chance to share ideas on making clean vehicles more affordable, reliable, and accessible. These ideas were included in a report to the governor in August of 2025. Now, CARB is building on that work with Drive Forward, a program focused on shaping clean vehicle rules, incentives, and education to get more zero-emission cars and trucks on California's roads. We'll continue hosting workshops, followed by more public meetings in the spring. I will first provide a recap of our morning session, which focused on individual and community mobility incentive programs. We generally refer to these programs as our light duty and mobility incentive programs. We started first with the public input we've received this last year and how we have addressed that input. We appreciate the feedback and participation we received throughout the funding plan process and want to report out on where things stand with that feedback. First, for Clean Cars for All and the Driving Clean Assistance Program, CARB is working to make the rules more alike. This will make it easier for people to understand and apply to these programs. CARB is also finding new ways to pay for these programs. For example, we are allowing funding from other programs like Carl Moyer and the Bureau of Automotive Repair to keep things running when there isn't enough in the budget. For the Clean Mobility Options programs, CARB is changing how they choose projects when future funding is available. They will now focus more on community needs, remove limits on funding, and give groups more time to finish their projects. These changes are based on what the public has asked for. Finally, the Clean Mobility in School program is growing. When future funding is available, it will be able to benefit more students, especially those from areas that don't have as many resources. We then presented on our progress to date. Our individual and community incentive programs have been allocated nearly $3 billion, deployed over 627,000 vehicles, reduced 11 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, deployed nearly 200 community projects, scrapped nearly 30,000 vehicles, and created over 1,400 jobs for community mobility. With our goals and impacts in mind, we then presented on our future investments and priorities. This slide presents our estimated annual funding and outcomes for our light-duty and clean mobility incentive projects. In total, we are estimating $550 million per year over 5 years, with $200 million of that being for clean mobility projects and $200 million of that being for Clean Cars for All, and $150 million of that being for financing assistance. Generally, attendees felt that more funding is needed than what was presented, and that funding should be flexible to support programs with the greatest need. They provided ideas on where efforts should focus, including making it easier to buy or use clean vehicles with better loan options for those most in need, expanding transportation choices such as community shuttles, safe walking paths, biking, and shared rides, removing barriers like hard-to-find or broken charging stations, high insurance costs for shared mobility, and lack of education and language support. Attendees also expressed interest in innovative solutions such as e-bikes, cord-free charging, and other clean fuel technologies. I will now discuss the afternoon session, which focused on clean trucks, buses, and off-road equipment, as well as emerging opportunities. We generally refer to these projects as our medium and heavy-duty incentives. In this session, we reminded folks that our medium and heavy-duty incentive programs encompass an array of project types that aim to deploy cleaner technologies while supporting air quality and climate goals. All the medium and heavy-duty incentive projects play complementary roles in the medium and heavy-duty incentive portfolio. You'll notice we left out the continually appropriated Carl Moyer program and the one-time settlement funded Volkswagen NOx mitigation program, since the focus of the November workshop was specifically on these projects that are subject to annual appropriations, which are not guaranteed. Next slide, please. Okay. The purpose of the session was to present progress and cumulative benefits on these programs to date, present and gather feedback on what we see as projected funding needs in the program over the next 5 years, and gather input through a series of questions. These questions were designed to collect ideas on whether our projected funding needs are reflective of the market, specific pre-commercial and commercial technologies to focus on, additional funding streams we should focus on, and ways the private sector may support these efforts. At the workshop, we presented projecting a need of $950 million annually over the next 5 years for our medium and heavy duty programs, allocated as follows. $450 million for HVIP. Demand remains at an all-time high, and continued investment will sustain progress in zero-emission truck and bus deployment statewide. $200 million for farmer program. Despite over $700 million in demand, only $2 million was allocated over the past 2 years. $200 million for CORE. CORE has been oversubscribed. CORE was oversubscribed within 5 days of reopening in August. And then $100 million for SHIFT. The program was oversubscribed by $250 million in its last solicitation. This program was funded in the fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-23. $100 million annually for SHIFT would help continue supporting the next generation of advanced technology vehicles and equipment, leading to commercialization and large-scale deployments. Generally, the attendees, whether representing environmental groups, manufacturers, community organizations, etc., thought projected funding needs were too low, and that additional funding is needed to continue momentum towards deploying cleaner technologies. They provided ideas on where available funding should be focused, including high-impact corridors such as ports and densely populated freight routes, prepaid zero-emission electric charging cards, advanced technologies, off-road technologies, among many others. Another key takeaway was that consistent funding streams are needed, and attendees provided ideas on potential alternative funding sources. These included container fees, weight permits, and CARB enforcement fees. And we'd still like feedback from folks on our projected funding needs, as they are reflective of the market. Open to any feedback you all may provide. And now I'll hand it over to Robert to facilitate comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Good evening, folks. My name is Robert Chester, and I work here at CARB. I will be facilitating questions and comments this evening. This is our first session. Okay, so we'll now open the floor for questions and comments about this part of the presentation. I'd like to remind everyone that these evening meetings are intended for community members and individuals not affiliated with an organization or company to be able to share their thoughts, comments, and ask questions. So please make space to allow them to speak first. So to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand. If you are on your desktop using Zoom, click Raise Hand under the Participants tab. If you are using Zoom on a mobile platform, please tap Raise Hand in the More tab. And if you are joining us by phone, please press *2 to raise your hand. Okay. When I call on you, please state your name and any affiliation, if you have one, before you ask a question or make a comment. If you would prefer to send us a comment or a question via email, please send those comments and questions to the email on the screen, Clean Transportation Incentives @arb.ca.gov. And we also will have somebody monitoring the email while we're doing this. So, not seeing any hands yet. No emails yet. Okay. Let's wait a little bit here. Just a reminder that we will have additional Q&A periods later on. Not seeing any hands raised this time. Still no emails. Aha. Okay. Rich Blaustein, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Rich Blaustein. I'm the correspondent for Climate Brief, which is published by the Continuing Education of the Bar of California. Thanks for these very informative evening events. I just have a question on the budgets and the funding that was presented. Take the example of HFIP, which requested or deemed about $450 million per year over the next 5 years. How much is, for example, authorized for 2026, and how far in advance is the budget certain? Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Michaela, do you have any feedback here? Oh, there you are, Lisa.
Hi. Yes. Hi, Lisa McCumber, CARB. So for 2026, the governor's budget. So what the staff presented tonight is kind of what our initial thinking was in the fall before the governor's budget came out of what the projects could use going into the next fiscal year and future fiscal years. It's really, these are numbers that we put out there to spark conversation around what each of the different sectors could benefit from. That said, the governor's budget that came out January 10th did not include any additional money this year for the majority of these projects. It did include $200 million to go towards a new electric vehicle incentive to backfill the loss of the federal tax credit that went away at the end of September. But beyond that, the air quality improvement program, which is around 35 or so million a year, it will receive its funding. The Carl Moyer program will receive its funding. And so those are programs that are regularly kind of programmed into the budget. But the dollars for the majority of the projects that we've laid out here today that we would normally see, say from the state's Cap Invest program, right now there's nothing identified. Those funding sources are all in a kind of tough position right now. So we are waiting to see how the rest of the budget fares out and what things will look like as the legislature engages in the spring. And then we'll see a revised budget from the governor in May. And then the legislature and the governor will make final decisions and vote on a budget in June. And we'll have a much better sense then what dollars will actually be available for programs.
Thanks, Lisa. Duan, did you want to add something?
Thanks, Lisa. Hey, this is Yang Trin. I'm the manager overseeing the HVIP program. So thanks for the question. From our November workshop for Drive Forward, the numbers on that slide you saw is about 950 million. Those were part of some of the staff's efforts in the long-term heavy-duty investment strategies program to kind of forecast, okay, what would we need to keep the market going? And our feedback that we received is even at those numbers, HVIP wasn't enough, that HVIP still needed more funding. So I think, as you heard just from Lisa, it's still a work in progress. January was the governor's budget. There's still opportunities to work through your legislative channels to, provide feedback. And over the next couple months, and we'll see if there's any change or amendments in the amount of funding that could go towards any of these other heavy-duty programs, meaning not VW or not CARB. So, and then I think to clarify, Rich, you're asking about what is that dedicated towards 2026. I'm not sure if you mean exactly programmatically for HVIP, but HVIP's a market-driven program, first come, first serve. We do have an implementation guideline out there that, I'm sure we can get your contact information and I can follow up with you, or one of my team can follow up you. But we have, when there is money available, there are certain manufacturers that need to become eligible. And those model years have a certain time frame, because what we trying to advance technology on for ZEVs across Class 2B to Class 8 commercial trucks, buses, is newer vehicles. So typically, we're not trying to fund like a used vehicle. That's not what HVIP is used for. There are other programs out there that can do that. But I'll stop there, and then if you have other questions, be happy to follow up with you later on. Thanks, Robert.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for your question, Rich. We have dropped a link in the chat to the governor's budget if you guys want more details on the funding in this year's budget. So we'll have another opportunity later on to talk about this if you still have questions. Okay. Evan Edgar, please go ahead.
Hello, Evan Edgar, live from Sacramento. I represent the refuse haulers and been participating in the meetings. About half the refuse fleet is on renewable diesel, other half is on renewable natural gas. And when we hope to go all RNG sooner than later, where we have near zero NOx with carbon negative fuel, the average carbon intensity of RNG is about minus 100. So we make that in state using organic waste that used to go to the landfills. So it's having methane at the landfills. Instead of doing that, we take the food waste, a non-edible, and green waste, and we make a fuel for the truck. What we like to see in the HVIP program is the near zero NOx definition. We had it years ago, and we're trying to bring it back because the value proposition on a near zero heavy duty, this is Class 7, Class 8 stuff, is we get payload, it's carbon negative, it works today. We are today's circular economy. By pivoting towards battery electric, that's carbon intensity is plus 20. It's not carbon negative, and it's a dirty industry by digging up the Congo for rare minerals, and it's just unethical sourcing of rare minerals for battery electric. So, you're asking the industry to get off RNG to move towards battery electric, which is half the payload, twice the cost. So I think in the name of affordability, I think that the best value is to keep on RNG and have the HVIP program fund RNG vehicles with near zero NOx definition with in-state renewable natural gas. And that be the best value and funding proposition that we keep on talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Evan. Appreciate your feedback. Okay, do we have any emails at this time? No emails, and there are no hands up. Okay. I think we can now move on. Our next presenter is Albertina. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there you go.
All right, good evening. My name is Albertina. The Heavy Duty Standards and Strategies workshop took place on December 3rd, 2025, and tonight we're going to provide a quick recap of that workshop. Next slide, please. Before we dive right in, let's go over a little bit of background about why we held the workshop. Despite the progress made over the past decades, California continues to have the worst air quality of any state in the nation due to its unique geography, high population, transportation lanes, and large shipping ports. Millions of Californians live in areas designated as non-attainment for federal health-based ozone and particulate matter standards. This exposure contributes to high rates of asthma, heart disease, and premature death. This year, we've seen an unprecedented attack by the federal government on our programs, resulting in the state needing to make up a big chunk of the emissions reductions needed to make the federal standards. Medium and heavy-duty trucks are a big piece of this puzzle. Although trucks make up only 7% of vehicles on California roads, they are responsible for 20% of transportation-related greenhouse gas emissions and nearly half of all transportation-related emissions. This chart illustrates the impact of trucks on our air quality and climate goals. As you can see, their emissions are very disproportionate to their numbers. This is why we're focusing this new rulemaking on this industry. Next slide, please. For some background, in June 2025, Governor Newsom signed Executive Order N2725 directing CARB to develop new regulations to reduce greenhouse gases, criteria pollutants, and toxics. Those potential new regulations for heavy-duty vehicles were the focus of December's workshop, where we shared potential concepts and regulatory structures that we can explore. Some guiding principles for this rulemaking include delivering real health benefits in the communities most impacted by pollution. We want to encourage manufacturers and fleets to reduce emissions earlier than otherwise required and ensure the rules can be achieved from a technological and cost standpoint. We also want to avoid any unintended negative effects on the economy or the market. Keeping the rules fair and simple will help maintain a level playing field for all. We're looking at rules to cover vehicles over 8,500 pounds GVWR operating in California, ranging from the largest pickups to delivery vans, work trucks, and big rigs. At our previous listening sessions, members of the public shared suggestions that would affect manufacturers, truck owners and operators, and companies that hire the trucking services, so we discussed those topics. Next slide, please. The workshop discussion focused on the possibility of the rulemaking being a two-pronged approach. One may focus on manufacturer requirements, while the other may focus on fleet requirements. On the screen, you'll see some of the manufacturer concepts brought to the workshop for discussion. Keep in mind that these concepts are only ideas. They were meant to spark discussion and do not reflect any decisions or commitments by CARB at this stage. Some of the ideas listed were: CARB could revise our engine emission standards to encourage more heavy-duty zero-emission vehicles on the road. This could involve credits for zero-emission vehicles or ZEVs towards CO2, and NOx averaging. Similarly, CARB could consider revising the current CO2 standards to give credits for ZEVs. CARB could also consider creating a vehicle standard for NOx and including credits for ZEVs. We are still considering all opportunities for encouraging manufacturers to produce HD ZEVs as early as possible. Next slide, please. This slide outlines parts of the regulation that would apply directly to fleet owners. Some of the following were suggested by the public at previous ZEV forward public listening lessons we've held and are marked by an asterisk. One suggestion brought forward to us was the retire and replace approach, where vehicles are removed at their end of life and replaced with the best available control technology, or BACT. The Green Zones Framework approach could allow for only cleaner vehicles to operate in certain designated regions with requirements that become stricter over time. A clean mile standard could require a specific percentage of heavy-duty vehicle miles to be driven using cleaner technology, ensuring emission reduction in real-world uses. And lastly, setting a fleet-wide emissions target, such as where the fleet must meet a specific NOx or greenhouse gas average, can give owners flexibility in choosing which trucks they upgrade to cleaner technology. Together, these concepts could give fleet owners multiple pathways to reduce emissions while still reaching broader air quality and climate goals. This slide introduces ideas that could be explored for regulating companies that do not own trucks themselves, but do depend on them to operate and serve customers. For example, some grocery chains might own their own fleets while others rely entirely on contracted hauling. One concept that came up through public input is establishing hiring requirements. This idea suggests that companies hiring vehicles could play a role in ensuring compliance by checking fleet information online to verify they are hiring fleets meeting a specific standard. Another is green contracting. This could involve encouraging or requiring companies to contract with fleets such as Class 7 or 8 tractors that go beyond the minimum regulatory standards, perhaps even with incentives. These type of concepts may include groups such as shippers, third-party logistics providers, or other companies that hire trucking services. During the workshop, staff specifically sought feedback on the potential approaches discussed from the manufacturer and the fleet. Ideas to get people to buy more ZEVs, for how to target specific technologies and sectors, how to best define goals, and other topics beyond what's listed here. We're still interested in receiving feedback on these topics. There will be a link to public comment docket and email where you can submit your thoughts at the end of the presentation. Note that staff in the discussion Note that staff are still in the discussion and information gathering stage, and there are no regulatory proposals yet. The comment docket for the workshop is still open, and staff continue to go through received comments. If you missed the first workshop, the recording is available on the Drive Forward Fleet Meetings and Workshop page, for which we will provide the link momentarily. Sorry, next slide. Oh, here are some more questions that were posed to us. Next slide, please. After introducing the concepts in the slide above during the December workshop, we received very valuable feedback. Many people were concerned about affordability and more incentives being provided. Many people were unsure if EVs were just as capable as ICE vehicles. supported green zones and clean mile standards and policies that increase the demand for ZEVs, wanted to include other clean combustion vehicles like renewable natural gas, supported removing the oldest, most polluting vehicles off the road, and most importantly, most people wanted CARB to prioritize equity and health for the most affected regions. As we develop new standards and strategies to reduce emissions from heavy-duty trucks, we want to get meaningful input from those most impacted. That means building on what we've already done, but doing more and trying new approaches to reach fleets, communities, and partners. Our outreach will begin with educating fleets, communities, and partners about the upcoming heavy-duty rulemaking and how they can provide input. We want people to understand what's coming, the timeline, and the ways they can get involved in the process. We're looking to hold our next Drive Forward Fleet workshop in the second quarter of 2026. You'll be able to find more information, meeting materials, and the workshop recording by scanning the QR code on the screen or by following the link provided in the chat. We also have informal comment docket for you to leave a comment, which also can be accessed via the QR code displayed or by following the link we'll drop in the chat. If you have questions or comments you'd like to provide us, you can also direct them to the Drive Forward Fleet at arb.ca.gov. Any stakeholders, including fleets or manufacturers, can reach us through these resources. I'll now pass it back to the community meeting facilitators.
Thank you, Albertina. We now have our second Q&A period. If you would like to provide a comment or ask a question, and you are joining on Zoom via a desktop, please click Raise Hand under the Participants tab. If you are joining via a mobile platform on Zoom, please tap Raise Hand in the More tab. If you're joining us by phone, please press #2 if you'd like to ask a question, to raise your hand. You can also email questions and comments to cleantransportation.incentives@arb.ca.gov. Okay, so the floor is now open for comments and questions. Do we have any emails? Okay, well, we will have one more Q&A session, at least one more, after our next presenter. So I guess at this time we can move on to Noemi.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you to the presenters. All right, so for this next presentation, I want to take a moment to reflect on the 2025 evening community meetings. And we want to hear from you on how these community meetings are working for you and what we can consider as we plan this year's evening community meetings and discussions. I'm going to be providing a quick update about the 2025 community meetings, some changes that we made last year, and then I'll end it with an open discussion to hear more from you. We'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so last year we held a total of 11 evening community meetings where we provided recaps and meeting summaries for communities about the daytime workshops and work groups for the low carbon transportation incentive programs. At these meetings, we gathered feedback from individuals and communities to be considered in CARB's changes to programs and policies through open dialogues and with communities. And we also held discussion times for CARB staff to answer questions and concerns of the communities. Next slide. This is a list of changes that we implemented in the 2025 evening community meetings. We did a couple things. We streamlined and simplified presentations as much as possible, and we worked closely with staff and programs to tailor these presentations for communities. We also increased and expanded our outreach for these meetings and developed new partnerships to help get the word out. This also included leveraging our regional outreach coordinators who extended invitations to these meetings through additional networks. We also increased our engagement with communities both in person and virtually, and we have more folks in communities now who are helping spread the word about these meetings. And lastly, we also increased the ease of accessibility to meeting materials by making it easier to access the agendas, by simplifying the navigation tools for the meeting recordings, and also helping people decide which meetings to attend by being clear about what topics will be discussed and also who should attend what meeting. All of this work has resulted in a significant increase in community registrations for these meetings, community participation and engagement with CARB staff. This is great for both communities and for CARB since we get to hear from communities more and folks are able to learn more about our program. So now that I covered the 2025 meetings and some of the changes that we implemented, we do want to hear from you directly and to use the next few minutes to discuss what you thought about last year's meetings and if there's anything that we should consider or can improve on this year. Before we open for discussion though, I do want to share that for those of you who prefer to share feedback less publicly, we have created a short anonymous survey that individuals can use to provide their feedback separately. The survey does give us insight into how we can better engage with communities through these meetings. And so I believe that staff have dropped the link for that. If you want to please provide some feedback, you can click on that link. We are wanting to share our findings at the next meeting and share with you what we've heard. So we're going to close the survey on Friday, February 6th so that we can include it in our presentation. I will pass it over now to Robert, who's going to open up the discussion. That way we can hear directly from you on how we can do better this next year or any topics that you'd like to hear from.
Okay, thank you, Noemi. As I've said earlier, if you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand. If you are joining us through Zoom on your desktop, please click Raise Hand under the Participants tab. If you are joining us through Zoom on a mobile platform, please tap Raise Hand in the More tab. And if you're joining us by phone, please raise your hand by pressing #2. Please state your name and affiliation if you have any before asking a question or making a comment. And if you would prefer to send us a comment or a question via email, please send them to cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. That is the email address on the screen. So the floor is now open to provide any feedback or questions you may have for any of the presentations this evening, but more specifically right now, we're asking for feedback on our evening community meetings from 2025, and if there's any suggestions you may have moving forward. Adelina, do we have any emails yet?
No emails.
Okay. Rich, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Rich Blausing from Climate Brief, published by the Continuing Education, the Bar of California. And again, I just express my thanks for all these community evening meetings. Again, a lot of information and understanding. I have a specific question that was touched on in the presentation here. So the CARB, low carbon incentive plan, am I correct? That was the plan that was going to be released around October, including to a CARB board meeting, and now is expected to be released and processed in 2026. And I was wondering, are there any expectations for when that might be processed and presented? Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Lisa?
Yes. Hi. Good. Thanks, Rich. Great question. Yes, the low carbon transportation, clean transportation funding plan was supposed to go to the board in November. Given that the budget, the legislative year had ended a little late, and there was no money for the projects besides the money that comes within the air quality improvement program, around 34 million. We opted to hold. Plus, there was so many things happening at the federal level at the time. Part of why we started this Drive Forward effort, and so kind of rolling the two things together, we delayed the November item. We will bring an item to the board this year. We don't have specifics yet on exactly when, but I think we are really trying to aim to get a plan out before the fiscal year ends, so hopefully by June. But we haven't publicly scheduled a date just yet. So hang tight. We should have that information out soon. We're just kind of going through the board calendar right now. What we do plan to do, though, is we will bring a plan to the board specifically for the air quality improvement program. And then if, in fact, there is other money that we receive that would otherwise need board discretion for how it's allocated across projects, we would include that in the plan as well.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, thanks for your question, Rich. Adelina, any emails?
No emails.
Okay. Thank you. We have no other hands raised at this time, but we'll give it a little bit. And as a reminder, if you'd prefer to send questions to us as opposed to vocalizing any comments or questions, you may do so by emailing us at cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. Still not seeing any questions or comments, no hands raised. I'm gonna hand it back over to you, Noemi.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you everyone who participated during the Q&A sessions. As a reminder, we will be closing the evening community meeting survey on Friday, February 6th. So please let us know your thoughts. Thank you. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so as a reminder, I wanted to take a moment to let communities know that the Community Planning and Capacity Building Grants, the 2025 request for applications is still open. Applicants can request up to $500,000 for projects with a total of 7.3 million available statewide. Eligible applicants include tribal governments, community-based organizations that are partnered with local or tribal governments, local governments as well, and public schools. Also, based on tribal feedback, a waiver of sovereign immunity is not required for the request for applications, which makes it more accessible for tribal applicants. Free technical assistance is also available to all applicants, and the requests have to be submitted by January 23rd. So if you're interested in that, please let CARB know. CARB planned 2 Q&A sessions. The first session already passed on January 8th, and the second Q&A session scheduled for January 27th. And this is to answer specific questions regarding the request for application. As a reminder, outside of these planned sessions, CARB staff, we can't respond to any of your questions about the request for application, but for full details, application instructions, and all supporting documents, we recommend that you visit the planning page for request for applications, which is on the CARB website. Staff, I believe, are dropping links in the chat if you want more information about these grants. All right, moving on to slide 36. All right, so wrapping up, I want to thank all the presenters and volunteers for their time and the communities for your participation. Before we log off, I do want to share some of CARB's upcoming events that you may be interested in attending. And here's a list of upcoming meetings. I do want to correct that the January 22nd CARB board meeting has been canceled. And I believe that the slides that we had posted previously for this meeting still show that. So again, the January CARB board meeting has been canceled this month, and the next meeting will be on February 26th and 27th. Secondly, I would like to highlight that CARB staff, including myself, are planning a tribal and community listening session on Tuesday, February 17th. And this is to discuss CARB's Drive Forward initiatives and to hear directly from tribes and communities about how we can advance clean transportation policies going forward. The details and registration for this meeting will be posted on the CARB website soon, so expect that to go up. And then also as a reminder, these evening community meetings are held every third Tuesday of the month, and we may need to shift these around a day or two, but we try our best to be consistent. To join any of the meetings that we see here, please visit our events web pages, and I believe that staff are dropping the links in the chat. That way you can have access to those meeting registration and links. All right, next slide. Okay, so before we end, we do want to emphasize to everyone that we have an open door policy, especially for those most affected by our incentive projects. We encourage communities and individuals to contact us if they would like to meet with staff to discuss their needs, their concerns, and any potential solutions. We also have an online form to request one-on-one meetings regarding clean transportation incentive. And then you can always reach us via email at any of the emails that are listed on this slide, or you can email us at cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. Another way to stay informed is to also join CARB's listserv. The listserv is a way to sign up for email notifications on topics that may be of interest to you, and also to get updates on the meetings that we mentioned earlier. And I think staff are dropping the links for all of these contacts. And again, we're here to listen. We do our best to help, and we want to thank everyone for attending tonight's evening community meeting. So it looks like this concludes our meeting for tonight. I want to wish everyone a good evening, and hopefully we can see you at next month's meeting.